Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Melissa Sweat, Customer Relationship and Community Manager at People on the Go, and I'll be moderating our session today. Before we start, let's just do a quick check to make sure that you can hear me just fine and see the screen. Go ahead and locate the questions panel and go to webinar and just type in a brief note, a hi, hello, and okay, and all sounds good, just to let me know that everything sounds great. Awesome. Thank you, Jody. I see your confirmation there. I'll wait for a few more to come in. Thank you, Adrian. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And by the way, if you're needing assistance, the number to call is right there on the screen. 1-800-263-6317. We'll also be sharing this in our groups, our Accomplishing More with Less groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, so you can find the recording there by the end of the day tomorrow. So you can find that there in case you miss anything. We bring these sessions to you because our focus at People on the Go is productivity in the workplace. And these are some of the many topics that we cover. We have some pretty awesome prizes available to you today, and I'll be sharing toward the end of the presentation how you can win these prizes. And just to go through the list just a bit here, we have the Leadership Today survey report, which is the focus, of course, of our presentation today. We're going to offer you a free seat for a lucky winner in the 2017 Leadership Program. And you can also win a couple of books by Pierre, Khawand, our founder, Time for Leadership, and by our presenter, Adrian Ott, as well, Exponential Influence, Designing Digital Habits that Engage Distracted Customers. So stay tuned again for information on how to win those prizes. I'd like to point you to the URL as well, where you can access our survey report. I'm going to send that to you in the chat right now. Feel free to check that out when you have a chance. And you're going to hear more about it soon. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers today. Pierre Khawand has more than 20 years of experience in the software industry and founded People on the Go in 2001. His Accomplishing More leadership program helps today's leaders develop the awareness and behaviors needed to focus and advance people in the midst of information overload. Pierre is the author of several books, including the best-selling Accomplishing More with Less workbook and Time for Leadership, among others. Adrian Ott has been called one of Silicon Valley's most respected, if not most respected, strategists by Consulting Magazine. As CEO of Exponential Edge Incorporated, Adrian and her team have assisted companies such as Microsoft, P&G, HP, Symantec, and technology startups to accelerate market strategy, new routes to market, and digital customer engagement strategies. Adrian is also the best-selling author of The 24-Hour Customer: New Roles for Winning in a Time-Starved, Always Connected Economy, which won Best Business Book of the Year by USA Book News and Library Journal. Her latest book is Exponential Influence: Designing Digital Habits that Engage Distracted Customers. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters.
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you, Adrian, for joining today. I'm looking forward to co-presenting this report with you. And welcome, everyone. So let me show my screen first and get us to talk a little bit about the background behind this report, this survey, and this report before we have our conversation. So first of all, Adrian and I have been working with leaders for some time. Adrian's focus has been on visionary leadership, and mine has been on helping leaders bring leadership skills to the workforce at all levels. So we've been witnessing firsthand some transformations related to leadership, and that's why we decided to explore this topic further, and that's why we engaged in this comprehensive research, which was met with some great enthusiasm, which was great and very encouraging, which indicates also that the workforce is ready for some changes. So the survey that we're going to talk about today included 17 questions. We won't go over them right now. I just want to highlight the key questions or the key themes. So one, we wanted to know from them what attributes and behaviors they see in effective leaders in their work today. So one focus I want to highlight here is behavior. So we were really interested in not just theoretically, but also from a behavioral perspective, what did they notice. And then we followed with 15 specific areas that we researched and we identified as being important to leadership and wanted to know how they ranked these different areas. And then we also wanted to include some reflection. So we had some reflection questions for them to think about how they rank their own leadership skills, how they rank their manager skills, but also how they think their direct reports would rank them. So it was a little bit of self-reflection, but also thinking about others and the others' point of views. And finally, who should get leadership training and how they felt in the workplace. So this is just to give you a feel. And in terms of participants, so the people who participated, we had about 800 people participate. 687 of them were qualified. They're all business professionals from the North America, basically. And in terms of the companies they came from, so I have here something I want to show you briefly. 60, almost two-thirds came from companies with more than 1,000 employees, so medium, large companies, and about 20% from smaller companies with less than 1,000 employees, and about 17% independents. So just to give you an idea. Now the report checks on many other demographics, including industries, including functional areas, etc. And at the end of the report, or throughout the report, we provide the findings by generation, by functional area, by level, etc. So you can zero in on the audience that you're interested in and be able to learn how they view leadership. So it's very extensive, and that's what we'll be talking about. So, so now in terms of our conversation today, we really wanted to share with you some of our key insights from this and have it be more in an informal conversation with hopefully we'll get to some questions at the end and see what your questions may be. So I wanted to start by asking Adrian, if you were to share, Adrian, like one key insight from the survey. I know it's hard to select one because there are many interesting insights, but if you were to select one, what would it be and what would you like to tell us about it?
Thank you, Pierre, and it's a pleasure to be here and to share these very exciting results with everyone here in the audience. Pierre and I have worked on this for quite some time, and it's great to see this come to fruition. In terms of key insights, I would say that one of the things that really rose to the top was vision. And vision was one of the key attributes that was cited across all the generations in the report, meaning millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, and also seniors and boomers. And what we saw was that visionary executives not only motivate, but they embrace the passion that Gen Y believes is a key attribute of leaders. You all probably heard about the recent debacle at Wells Fargo. And what we saw there is that executives can affect the culture through their vision and also through their tools, such as metrics that are really implementations of their vision. And that can have both a positive and a negative effect on the organization. So really, your vision, when yielded appropriately, vision can be very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, such a big impact on the whole organization. And actually, kind of building on what Adrian said, I'm going to take us to the report to a specific section where you see that vision came on top. Am I here? Yeah. So you can see being visionary was the top, basically exactly the top. Now, my key insight, kind of continuing the same topic, is that focused and passionate came right next to visionary. I think this is huge for several reasons. One is that emphasis on focus, and from my conversations with a lot of the people who have been thinking about this topic, so focus is important, not just the traditional focus at a high level, like leading leading the organization in a way that's focused, having a focused strategy, etc., but also the focus on a daily basis. So basically creating or encouraging a culture of focus, realizing that if we're not focused on a daily basis, if we're always interrupting and scattered and everybody's interrupting everybody, that's also lack of focus, and that's also important. So that was one aspect. And then the other aspect is passion. And I think it's also great to see that be in the top three, because this means that leaders will motivate people if they are passionate. They will engage people and create a whole different energy in the workplace. So it's great to see that these are rising pretty much to the top. Now, Adrian, I know we have a lot of insights that that we both felt they were really on target, but was there something that surprised you in this?
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see that seniors were by far the happiest in their job, with more than half citing that they were either super happy or very happy and fulfilled. I was also surprised to see boomers and seniors cite ethical as a top attribute for leaders. But this was not cited by the younger generation so much. So perhaps leaders of older generation employees will need to be mindful that boomers and seniors are seeking out ethical behaviors by their leaders, and they'll need to really pay attention to that.
Yeah. And what surprised me was that self-awareness and awareness of others, they came as pretty much the top two when it came to ranking the different attributes and behaviors, which was a subsequent question. I'll take you there quickly. So that was page 15. So I mentioned earlier, we've identified 15 areas. This is based on research that they were really important for leadership today, and we asked everyone to rank them. So you can see awareness of self and awareness of others. They came pretty much in the top three. The other one was motivating teams, and then after that there were a number of attributes and behaviors. But it's really great to see self-awareness and awareness of others rank up so high. My interpretation is that the workforce is begging for leaders to be more attentive to what's going on around them, and not just the factual things and the market data, which what traditional leaders are good at, but also the emotional side of things. So their own emotions and the emotions of the people around them. And this may explain a little bit why passion ranked so high, because passion really is related to emotions. And so we're really hitting on a very important trend here. Okay, so well, one more thing I want to mention is focus on results. So focus on results is there's no question that this is really important. So it's not that this is less important, it's just the fact that this is very traditional. We all know it, we've been talking about it for years, but the awareness and the self-awareness are the new thing. So that's why it's really interesting and a little surprising, but understandable. So as you can see, one of the things that we have in this survey, we had participants who are managers and leaders, and we have also participants who are individual contributors. So we really wanted to invite a broad range of participation so we get different points of views. And from that, we gained a lot of interesting thoughts and insights. So I'd like first to ask you, Adrian, if you want to share with us some learnings or some insights for managers and leaders. What would you encourage managers and leaders to do differently based on what we observed and found in the survey results?
Sure. I am a strong believer that leadership is about motivating and empowering employees to conduct their work and putting in the appropriate guardrails or guidelines to ensure they don't fall off a cliff, such as breaking the law. All too often, what I've seen, not only from what I've seen in the survey, but also in practice, is an over reliance on rules, measurement, and metrics to run an organization. And so what happens is management ends up in this autopilot mode. And I wrote an article for Harvard Business Review about a major airline that refused to allow returning Army personnel from the war in Afghanistan to check their gear bags because of a top-down metric that prevented them from doing the right thing. They all knew what the right thing was, but because they were so driven by these metrics, they couldn't act appropriately. We also saw what the over-reliance on sales metrics has done at Wells Fargo as they're trying to work out of their current embarrassing situation. So the bottom line as to what leaders should do differently is that they really need to think about good governance. And what good governance is it enables timely, optimal decision making at the lowest levels of the organization. Empower your people to do what they do best. And although it's tempting for management to set metrics and forget it, there needs to be room for judgment. Otherwise, we'd replace managers with robots.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I actually remember that article that you mentioned, Adrian. It really caught my attention at the time, and I thought, wow, how can metrics almost blind the frontline employees and steal away their judgment, and something needed to change. And I think the report is really confirming that yes, the workforce needs this to be different.
Yeah, I think the challenge right
Yeah.
now, Pierre, is that because you can measure it doesn't mean you should. And I think management needs to be a little more have a little more oversight and judgment over what's going on, and use these as tools as opposed to making them absolute rules to things. Guardrails.
Yeah, that's refreshing to hear, because we hear metrics everywhere, and it's almost everyone needs to jump on it so they don't feel behind, which is good, but as you mentioned, it needs to be done with still having attention to the bigger picture. So moving to, so Adrian shared some of what she encourages managers and leaders to do. I'm going to take the other side of the question. What would we encourage individual contributors to do differently? So the way I'm going to put this is seize the opportunity. Develop leadership skills now. You don't need permission to do so. So that's basically one of the biggest findings in this survey, is that everyone at all levels seem to be eager to be part of those leadership skills and behaviors. Doesn't mean they need to be a manager or a leader. It means they want the skills so they can exercise them at all levels. And just to show you a little bit more about this, let me show you actually first this question on page 3 in the report, actually page 6 in the PDF, or maybe not, it's page 12 in the PDF. So this is the question we asked everyone. So do you think, are you born with leadership, or is this something you can learn? So the interesting part, about 12% said, yes, you can learn this. But 33% said you need to have some innate capabilities, but it's mostly learned. And then 27% said it's an equal combination. So between those three segments, about 70% of people believe that you can learn leadership at least partially and develop those skills. So this is very encouraging. And one more thing I want to show you, which is a question we asked later. And this would be, so who do you think should receive leadership training? And this is very encouraging, that about 2/3 of the participants, and this goes back to what Adrian highlighted earlier in her article, believe that frontline employees should get those leadership skills and behaviors. And then about also close to 2/3 said also individual contributors. We all agree that executives, directors, and managers should get that training, but this is a new thing, is that this should be, the reach of leadership should be broader and should be really much more accessible to more people. Okay, I think what we can do here is we want to leave some time for questions and answers. So what we're going to do is do a few closing comments. I just have a couple comments here, and then would like to open it to questions and answers. The comments I want to add here, and then Adrian can feel free to add to this as we go through it. So one is, so leadership today is different. We need to recognize this. And not only being visionary is so crucial, but also adding to that self-awareness, awareness of others, and bringing passion to leadership. And then the fact that leadership needs to be much more broad, and then allowing those skills to be available to all people at all levels. Anything else you would like to add, Adrian, before we turn it back to Melissa?
Yeah, I just like to close by summarizing that visionary leadership is not only about creating the passion and sharing the vision, but utilizing the tools of governance effectively, such as rules and metrics. And what really good executives do and visionary leaders do is they think in terms of guardrails, not gates, for their employees, to empower them and enable that front line to really do their job best.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So Melissa, we can go back to you, and then start the Q&A after you get us going.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Pierre and Adrian, and thank you all again for joining us. Once more, this is Pierre and Adrian's contact information if you'd like to be in touch directly and learn more. And then, as we shared earlier, we have some reminders. This, again, is the link to the survey report. I sent that to you earlier at the start of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and send that again now. That's a handy link for you. You can go ahead and access the report there. Our prizes today, as I mentioned at the start, we have a lot of prizes for you. And in order for you to be entered to receive these prizes, the way to enter into the drawing is to simply fill out our feedback form. Very easy. It's going to pop up on your screen when we exit the session today. It'll just pop right up when we exit GoToWebinar, and just fill that out and you will be entered. And you can win a copy of the survey report. We're going to pick winners for each of these. A copy of the survey report. You can get a seat in the upcoming leadership program at People on the Go, which is an amazing program. And you can also receive a copy of Time for Leadership by Pierre and Adrian's book, Exponential Influence, Designing Digital Habits That Engage Distracted Customers. So some great prizes for you today. And with that, let's get into the Q&A. So Pierre and Adrian, you mentioned, the interest in all levels of individuals and organizations being interested in developing leadership skills. What are ways that leaders within teams or departments or overall can really help encourage that culture within organizations and not stifle it, or just what are some ways to encourage that further?
So one thought that came to my mind as you asked this question, in addition to modeling leadership and showing what that looks like, it's also coaching people to exercise those skills, and also creating more conversations. And I think conversations can start small within small teams about this topic of how important it is to broaden and encourage everyone to develop and exercise leadership skills. And and then I think they would grow and become part of the culture. I think accompanying this with more structured programs, making more learning tools available of all kinds, informal and formal, can help tremendously. But I think it needs to be something that there is a whole movement, both top down and bottom up. I think sometimes bottom up movements can be equally effective. Adrian, anything else?
Yeah, more than ever, we're relying on everyone to have leadership skills, particularly here in the Silicon Valley, where I'm working with a lot of companies. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have be on the org chart in a particular management role. Leaders are at all levels, and we see people leading virtual teams and virtual tasks, and I see agile workforces that are applying agile processes, and each of those people are leading sub-teams that are enabling the work to come together. And so I think that having that skill has become an essential component, and we should not necessarily equate leadership with management. Because I think that individual contributors are leading as well. And in fact, I think in some ways they have a more challenging role in leading because they're leading people who don't necessarily report to them and may not necessarily, they have to exert a lot more influence to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Great, wonderful. And let's see, Tassine shared with us here, have you read the book Leader Without a Title by Robin Sharma? It's very consistent with what you're saying about leadership at all levels of the organization. And if you have any thoughts on the book yourself.
I haven't myself, but I've heard about the book and the theme of the book, and it's on one of those things that really resonates with what we're doing, and it's
Yeah,
on the list to get in touch with the author and the group to kind of help evangelize this topic. I
right.
don't know, Adrian, if you stumbled upon the book or not, but it's a very thank you for that suggestion, and I think it's great to see more people working on this field.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. I'm not familiar with the book, but it definitely coincides and resonates with the findings we had in the survey. And
Yeah.
in fact, one of the things that I thought was most interesting that came out was that people felt that they are better, that they considered them to be leaders, really good leaders, but they didn't consider their immediate manager to be a good leader. And I thought that was really interesting finding to see people say that. And part of that, you might say that's human nature and that maybe people overestimate. I mean, you see that on surveys like around sex and things like that. But but people tend to a little overestimate things. But at the same time, it could also be that maybe people have unrealistic expectations if they've never been to a leadership course or been to a management
Mm,
course, and realizing that everybody's human and
mm,
that what managers really can and cannot do. And if you've never really had experience with direct reports before, maybe that would set some expectations as to what's realistic within those bounds. But that book definitely fits within, I think, the reality today. Workforces are becoming much flatter, and we really need the people who are closest to the situation at the front line making critical decisions, and we need to give them the tools to do that.
mhm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you, Pierre. Such a great conversation today. And thank you all again for joining us. I'd like to also remind you of some upcoming workshops that we have available at People on the Go. Design Thinking to Focus, Collaborate, and Play coming up in San Francisco if you're in the area next week, in fact, on November 9th. And then in December, Project Management for Non-Project Managers, a two-part webinar series coming up in December. And you can find more information on that on our website. And again, these are offered at a discount, so please go ahead and check those out and take advantage of those. And we hope, of course, that you check out the survey as well. And thank you all again for joining. Once more, when we exit the session today, the feedback form will pop up, and that's your key to go ahead and fill that out, and you'll be entered to win the prizes today. Thank you all again, and I look forward to having you at a future session. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Adrian. Welcome, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, Adrian.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.